All right, hey guys, Shane from the Vonu podcast here with another Vonu vlog. So I guess first off, let me just go ahead and apologize for the just okay audio quality yesterday. I'm testing out this new little adapter. It's a Lightning, like the Apple charger, Lightning to a USB female, so I can actually plug my ATR 2100 into it and get great audio mobilely on my phone. So I'm testing that out, and there's no way to actually adjust the volume of the microphone. So yeah, that's what you heard in yesterday's video. Only that was after some post-production to actually make it quieter. So, anyways, I'm just testing this out. And I'm also testing out, making more content mobily. Since when I'm a van nomad, I'll have to get used to making, doing podcasts or videos in my car, or maybe just on location, as I am, today at Hidden Springs State Forest. So this is probably, well, I'd say about 20-25 minutes from Eagle and Wolf Creek State Park, where I've been known to venture before. And this one is not on Lake Shelbyville. So this is just Hidden Springs State Forest. It's just a forest. So both beautiful locations. Just this one you don't get the lake. But I don't know. I really did like kind of the drive in here a little better, and it wasn't as, I guess, confusing as some of the other locations. It's probably because it's a little small. I've got a special video for you titled Vonu in Cities versus Vonu in the Wilderness. So I'm going to talk about the pros and cons to each, which one's more attractive to more folks, and also kind of the struggles and obstacles in developing Vonu in cities. So I guess I'll start with Vonuing in the wilderness. So obviously I think it goes without saying that it's easier to remain invulnerable to coercion, in the wilderness. Take Rayo, for example. When he was in the Siskiyou National Forest, the Siskiyou region, Northern California, Southern Oregon, yeah, he was pretty invulnerable to coercion. Not many folks would venture out, far enough back in the woods where he was. So he remained pretty invulnerable to coercion back in the woods. So yeah, obviously with more populations, with increased populations comes an increased vulnerability to coercion, and then also, as Jason Booth has said many times, the more populated an area, the more bludgies, the more government there's going to be. So that, tends to hold true. So I guess one downside from wilderness Vonu is it's harder to survive. You're far away from the servile society, so the need for additional specialized skills, yeah, then the need is necessary, without a doubt. As I think I wrote this in my book. Actually, I don't think I've ever said it in a podcast. But you stick your normal average person in the servile society out into the woods for 2 weeks, and once they go through all their, once they burn through all their fat, I mean, they'll die pretty quickly. So, a lot of folks aren't outfitted to live in to live in this environment. It's kind of been, I guess. I guess maybe evolved out of people, right? With everyone, with most of the population living in large populated cities where all of their necessities are provided to them, basically by the state minus the non-welfare state stuff. So now I think it also goes without saying that wilderness Vonu, what Rayo and Roberta did, living in a polyethylenata in the Siskiyou National Forest, or like what Bert and Lisa from Dwelling Portably do, just backpack nomadism. They just travel around on foot, and that's what they do. So yeah, this is definitely a less attractive lifestyle to most folks. In other words, fewer amount of people will be interested in the lifestyle of wilderness Vonu because it is brutal. It is brutal in quite a few ways, but again, when it comes to Vonu lifestyle changes, the idea is to make sacrifices in pursuance of personal freedom. So I guess one note here on import-export. So how does import-export work, wilderness Vonu versus Vonuing in the cities? Well, import-export, when you're wilderness Vonuing, it's going to require more travel. I think that just kind of goes without saying, and probably in most circumstances. I guess one advantage, though, on the flip side, one advantage of, import-export for Wilderness Vonu is most folks that pursue Wilderness Vonu are doing it for the isolation, and therefore they'll stock up when they go back to, the servile society. So they won't have to go back there, once a week, or, a couple times a week, or a few times a week, where they, aren't going to be, camping in city squat spots like the Vonuans and cities would do. So, so yeah, I guess, less times, less interaction with the servile society overall, but a longer travel time to get there. So, as far as Wilderness Vonu, I don't really have anything else to say. It's one of the least attractive lifestyles. Anytime I give a presentation or introduce the subject of Vonu, I always tell the story of Rayo, and kind of just wait for the reaction, right? Especially if it's a presentation, because seeing the reaction on people's faces, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. And when you reveal to them that that's the most radical lifestyle change out there, then the expression becomes a little more comfortable, I guess. But yeah, definitely not one of the most attractive lifestyles, and it's quite brutal. It's quite brutal. So I guess I'll end there with that, and we'll talk about Vonuing in cities. Now, this is something we talked about in season 2 for one episode. Basically just what Rayo had to say about it. And since then, not much has been developed in this realm. This will be, I think Rayo only said, Rayo only wrote about, maybe a couple paragraphs on the subject. So basically, Kyle, Jason, and I will have to develop Vonuing in cities kind of from the ground up. So this one's a little more difficult, obviously, right? Because as I said, with Wilderness Vonu, it's far easier to remain invulnerable to coercion. Hell, if there's no one out there, there's no one to coerce you, right? So yeah, this raises some interesting difficulties. So I guess let's get into some of the pros here. So the necessities to survival are nearby. So contrast that with Wilderness Vonu. If you're 30 miles away from a city, and you're Wilderness Vonu, you don't have a van, you're just a pedestrian nomad, and something happens and you need to get to the servile society, well, that's a far way to go, right? 30 miles or 20 miles or whatever it is, it's a decent walk. Now, when you're Vonuing in cities, you may have a hidden bed chamber, maybe a hidden apartment that's not visible to the public. Maybe there's a an industrial business park area where there's I guess hidden apartments were constructed underground. I mean, there are different scenarios. That's basically all that we've come up with. Hidden bed chambers, hidden apartments in industrial business parks. Maybe something like Breaking Bad, where you hide a meth lab in a laundromat, an industrial laundromat. That's possible. Aurora from Alongside Night would be, I guess, to some extent, maybe an example of Vonu in cities. I'll kind of leave that one for now. But yeah, the options for this one are a little more. It's not just you get a van or you buy a tent, and you go live your Vonu lifestyle. This one's a little more complicated. A little more complicated, which is why in season 3 we're gonna have to develop the hell out of this one. So yeah, if you're Vonuing in the cities, your necessities will be necessities to survival will be nearby. Vonuing in cities is more attractive to more folks. Since it holds true that the majority of people live in in largely populated cities, then it would hold true that this strategy would be more attractive to folks, which is why I want to talk about this on the Vonu podcast before, because it could interest more people. But at the same time, we've got a lot of work to do on this one. We've just got a lot of work to do on this one. So something that Rayo mentioned as a possible downside for Vonuing in cities is the city psychological pressures. Now, if someone's immersed in this alien society, one that is contrary to their values and their autonomy, that can be mentally difficult on a person. As I'm sure all anarchists and agorists can understand. That's why freedom festivals are so great, is because it gets us out behind the computer screens and into reality, interacting with people who share similar beliefs and principles, I guess. So. So yeah, the city psychological pressures are, yeah, they're tough to overcome. They definitely are tough to overcome, and even when you get out, whether it's van nomadism or Wilderness Vonu, the city, the state of servile society can still be alluring, as I said in the last video. So yeah, the city psychological pressures are super difficult to deal with. Rayo kind of made the claim that few people have been able to actually sustain that, where they live this this Vonu lifestyle, becoming as invulnerable to coercion as possible, while simultaneously living in this really hostile environment. It's hard to kind of facilitate both of those, I guess, things in the same area, which is why building Vonu mini cultures and second realms is so important. Is that it gives our ideology a chance to exist in physical space. So I guess right along with the city's psychological pressures is it's harder to manage and control schizophrenia. As I said, if you're immersed in this society and you're bombarded with propaganda, it's it's not surprising to see folks backslide into political crusading. If they ever gave up the servile society games at all. So, yeah, the city. I think I'm I'm definitely more in line with Rayo here. That I prefer to be back far enough in the woods. When I'm a van nomad, I'm going to, go as, stay off grid as much as I possibly can, right? The idea is to, escape the servile society, live free, create self-liberational media, and hopefully, inspire others to take the steps necessary for freedom. So I guess one final note here on import-export. Since I mentioned it for Vonuing in the wilderness, I'll mention it for Vonuing in the cities. And for Vonuing in the cities, it would obviously be easier if you're if you're Vonuing in cities, then you're already there at the servile society. You just have your own second realm, your own Vonu home base where you're invulnerable to coercion, or at least more invulnerable, the most invulnerable to coercion. The place where you'll be most invulnerable to coercion. Excuse me. So yeah, with import-export, importing goods and knowledge. Excuse me, importing goods and knowledge back, to your Vonu home base and exporting labor back to the servile society. So that's what we're talking about here with import-export. If you want to look through some of these definitions, if a lot of these terms are new, VonuPodcast.com/definitions. I realize, and people tell me this, that, once I start talking, I'll drop, terms that people might not have heard of. And if I were to stop and define each one of those, define, explain, it just wouldn't work for shorter videos. So VonuPodcast.com/definitions. I'm sorry if some of this goes over your head, because this is a new concept to a lot of folks. So that's why I put that page there on the website as a resource. So yeah, the import-export, you're going to be right there in the servile society if you're Vonuing in the cities. Won't need to stock up as much. You'll have more interaction with the servile society, obviously, the city's psychological pressures and those sorts of things. So I guess to conclude, as I said, I prefer wilderness Vonu, at least to a certain extent. Wilderness Vonu in my van with solar power and such. I'm not trying to go primitive here. I'm definitely not trying to do that. Still, utilizing technology as a tool for self-liberation, while also realizing that, it's far easier to be free out in the wilderness. So, that's my preference personally. But I do know there are a lot of you out there that, have lived in cities forever. For some reason, you find them attractive. That's where you want to be. Maybe you have work. Maybe your work is there. I don't know. Whatever the reason is, some people prefer Vonuing in cities, and that is perfectly fine. That's why we're going to work on developing it. So, Vonuing in the wilderness is obviously easier in many regards, and Vonuing in cities is easier in many regards as well. So, it just comes up to you. It comes down to you. As Rayo said, Vonu is yours for the making. So, what lifestyle do you? What would make you most happy? What would make you the happiest? What would make you, I guess, content with your life, satisfied, maybe even just overjoyed with the life that you built for yourself. What do you want? Would a wilderness, I guess, front porch view be more conducive to your life, or would you prefer to, I don't know, have a hidden bed chamber in a city? Both of them are options, and obviously there are a lot of other options as well. But just something to think about here on this Friday. So again, here at Hidden Springs State Forest, I hope you guys enjoyed the VonuVlog. I don't have anything else for you. The website is VonuPodcast.com, and actually this evening I will be recording the next episode of Season 3 of the Crypto Anarchism series with Kyle. So we'll get into blockchain technology and such. If you enjoyed the video, please. I'm trying to hit the road as a van nomad. I'm trying. I'm working really hard towards it. But obviously, any help from you guys would help me get there quicker. VonuPodcast.com/donate. You can become a patron. You can shoot us some digital currency, some cryptocurrencies. You can make a one-time donation via PayPal. You can use some of our affiliate links like VeerWalks, a virtual world exchange. If you want a more privacy-friendly way to, convert your Bitcoin to U.S. dollars and vice versa. So that's all I have for you. I'm going to continue walking around But I'll go ahead and end with some footage from my hike. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later.